What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Primetime Sports Podcast, hosted by Joey Mailari. So tonight, I'm going to recap what happened in the Beanpot last night in the semifinal games. First one, obviously, was BC versus Harvard. I mentioned that yesterday, live on air here in WZBC. And then I also talked about a preview for the Northeastern versus BU game, which was the nightcap game last night, 8 o'clock. Northeast ended up getting a big win last night, 3-1 over BU, and then BC lost a heartbreaker, which they actually made a great comeback. They were down 3-1, made it 3-3, still lost game 4-3 though in overtime, unfortunately, to Harvard. This is actually the first Beanpot final ever, so there's now 70 Beanpot finals. This will be the 70th one. It took until the 70th Beanpot final for Harvard and Northeastern to meet in the finals of a Beanpot tournament. Just think about that. 70 tournaments it took for Harvard versus Northeastern to be a Beanpot final. Obviously, it shows how dominant that BU and BC have been. Clearly, BU, the most historic program in the Beanpot history, having 31 titles, and then BC has 20, and Harvard has 11, Northeastern has 7. Both of those teams combined to just 18 between the two programs, 18 titles between Northeastern and Harvard, and that's not even more than BC, who has 21, then obviously Harvard, who has 20, and then obviously BU as well, who has 31. So you look at it, obviously it shows how dominant those two other programs are, and then obviously now on the rise, Northeastern's won 3 of the last 4 Beanpot tournaments. Harvard has not won since 2017. Now they find themselves back in the Beanpot final for the first time since then. So pretty encouraging for Harvard. For BC, though, they haven't won a Beanpot final since 2016. They haven't been in a Beanpot final game since 2019. They've only made the Beanpot final once since winning in 2016. So BC's got to find themselves back in the Beanpot final, and obviously last night was a chance to get themselves back there, and they ended up falling short. But BC played a lot better in the third period. The first 2 periods was dominated by Harvard for the most part. One thing Harvard did in that game was they limited mistakes, and that's one thing BC didn't do. Some turnovers in the neutral zone that didn't really help BC at all. Harvard scored right away. I mean, the first 10 seconds of the game, the first shift, Harvard had to go right away. And even though it was taken back for too many men on the ice by Harvard's offense, you never want to see a goal in the first 15 seconds. I mean, even though it was taken back, that's still momentum. A goal in the first 15 seconds is momentum no matter which way you look at it. And so right away, BC find themselves down 1-0, even though it ends up getting taken back. It's 0-0. BC never really found their footing until about the third period. It was 2-0, though. In the second period, when Mike Posma scored a goal for BC on the power play, made it 2-1, which one thing I mentioned yesterday was that if BC wants to win this game, they have to take advantage of mistakes by Harvard. You have to take advantage of mistakes. Harvard's number 5 in the country in penalties per game. They're 5th best in limiting penalties per game. So if Harvard makes a mistake, BC has to take advantage. And they did that. I mean, they scored a goal on one of the 2 power plays that they had, which isn't bad. Harvard scored on both their power plays. 2 power plays for Harvard. They scored on both of theirs. They were leading going into the third period 3-1. BC got a couple goals, one from Nikita Nesterenko with about 4 minutes to go in the third period. Had a great goal, assisted by Lucas Gustafsson and Oscar Jelvik. And then BC got another goal from Cutter Gauthier, the 5th pick in the draft. This time was from Trevor Kuntar and Andre Gasso. With about a minute and a half to go, BC tied it up and made it 3-3. Going into overtime, BC didn't really take too many chances, where they were playing more conservative. I think Harvard was playing conservative too in that fourth period. In the overtime periods, I'm talking about the fourth period. Both schools seemed like played a little conservative. Harvard only taking 2 shots on goal. BC only taking 2 shots on goal. But BC overall took 48 shots on goal, including 9 shots on goal in the game from Nikita Nesterenko. 48 total for BC in the game. They had 9 shots on goal from Nikita Nesterenko, including 7 in the third period. They had 4 in the third period from Cutter Gauthier. 7 overall for Gauthier in the night. Colby Ambrosio, who had a tough finish to the game, had 5 shots on goal total. Overall in the night, BC lit up shots on goal with 48. Harvard only had 25. They did score, though, 4 goals in the 25 shots on goal overall. BC scoring just 3 goals on their 48 shots on goal. And you got to give credit where it's due. Mitch Gibson played great in net for Harvard. 45 shots faced with 3 goals allowed, saving 42 of 45 shots, which was obviously pretty impressive. 45 shots saved on 48 shots, there. And then for Mitch Gibson in net for BC, Mitch Benson, the other Mitch. Mitch Benson in net for BC had 21 shots saved on 25 shots faced. Not his best night, but considering all in all, one of the goals really wasn't his fault. He was getting screened by a BC defenseman. And then obviously that goal in overtime where it's a 3-on-3 overtime period. That's what college hockey is now. And you look at what was on the ice, obviously 3-on-3. Harvard didn't use their speed at all in overtime. I don't know why they didn't. They just chose to really let the overtime period run out until they got a rush with about 8 to 10 seconds to go. They went down the ice 3-on-3, 3-on-2. They had an opportunity. And you look down the ice, Kobe Ambrosio's dogging it back to the defensive zone. No back check at all from him there. And Harvard gets a game-winning goal with 1.5 seconds to go, which is devastating. You don't want to lose in a situation like that. So all in all, credit to Harvard, though, even though they really don't have too many fans in attendance, which I'm sure they'll bring more now next week, considering they'll be in the finals game for the first time since winning in 2017. And it's always obviously their first time playing Northeastern in a Beanpot final. It's a historic night. Overall, next Monday night will be, which that game will be televised on NESN at 7:30. Credit to Harvard the way they played. The first two periods they dominated. In the third period, BC dominated in shots on goal, 22-2 in shots on goal in the third period. Harvard went completely conservative in the third period. Even in the second period, BC dominated shots on goal 18-12. But that third period was dominated by BC in shots on goal. But credit to where it's due. Harvard won the faceoffs. Outright all night, was just dominating in faceoffs. John Farinacci, who's friends with my friend Matt, who goes to Harvard, brother of the legend Mark Walsh. Farinacci was unreal in faceoffs. 18 of 25 faceoffs he won. Baker Shore won 13 of 17. And then Matt Coronado, who did have 2 goals in the game. 2 of 4 Harvard's goals were from Coronado. He won 11 of 23 faceoffs. BC struggled. 23 faceoffs they won in 66 attempts. All in all, on the night, though, BC, 3 goals, 2 of them coming in the third period in the last 5 minutes to go. And then obviously Harvard gets the game-winning goal in the fourth period with just a minute, or under in the last minute, with a second and a half to go, and end up winning the game and sending themselves to the Beanpot final next week. And now that brings me to the game between Northeastern and BU last night. Northeastern split with BU in the regular season this year, 1-1, winning the game at Agganis Arena and then losing at Matthews Arena, so they split, both of them winning their away games. But Northeastern ended up getting out to a hot start last night. Aidan McDonough scored with 6 minutes to go in the first period, which I mentioned yesterday. Aidan McDonough has to get going. And I talked about both games, right? I previewed both games. I said, all right, what each team needs to do to win. What Harvard needs to do is limit their penalties, which they've been great at. They did have 2 penalties, but they've been good at their power play. And they scored in 2 of 2 power play opportunities. For BC, I said limit penalties, which they only had 2 on the night. Wasn't their worst night. And also not let Harvard control the pace of play. That's what I talked about with BU. I said you do not want BU to control the pace of play. And Northeastern last night dominated the pace of play in my eyes. Dominated the pace of play. And what BC did well in yesterday was in the third period dominated the pace of play. The first 2 periods, even though they were getting a lot of shots on goal, not all of them really quality shots. Third period, they were getting great shots on goal, including 2 that scored to tie the game in the last few minutes of the game in regulation. But as to Northeastern, I said they have to start out hot. They have to set up Aidan McDonough on a power play. McDonough scored in an even strength goal, but no matter what it may be, a goal is a goal. Northeastern will take it. He scored with 6 minutes to go in the first period. Assisted by Vinny Borghese and also Jack Williams. And then Yakov Novak, 1:48 seconds into the second period, scored a goal for Northeastern. Big goal there for him, assisted by Jack Hughes and Jeremy Bushler. Matt Brown scored for BU with just about 2 minutes to go, assisted by Lane Hudson and Dominic Fenzori, 2 guys I mentioned yesterday. I also mentioned Matt Brown as well. And then rookie freshman defenseman for Northeastern got an empty net goal with 30 seconds to go in the third period, winning Northeastern the game 3-1. And now if you look at my predictions, right, I wasn't going to make predictions, but I said, you know what, I'm going to make a prediction. It's my last Beanpot final, or semifinal that is. Why not make a prediction? My prediction was Northeastern winning the game 3-1, being up 2-1 with an empty net goal in the last minute. And that's exactly what happened. Northeastern winning the game 3-1. And I also said Devin Levi has to dominate in the net, and that's what he did. I said Northeastern has to limit their penalties, which they didn't do. They still had 4 penalties. I said BU has to limit their penalties. BU did limit their penalties, only had 2. But neither team scored in their respective power plays. But if you look at shots on goal, Northeastern had 29, BU had 34. Devin Levi had 33 saves on 34 shots faced, including 15 shots faced in the third period. He saved 15 of 16 shots faced in the third period with 15 saves in that last period of regulation. And I mentioned some players on Northeastern that had to have good games. Who had good games? Aiden McDonough. We'll start with him. Great game from Aiden McDonough. Had a great game. That's what Northeastern needed. Senior captain, they need a big game out of him, and that's what they got. McDonough was all around out there on the ice. You could feel his presence all night. He only had 1 goal, but and no assists. Obviously, the assists on the night went to Bushler, Williams, Borgesi, and also Jack Hughes as well. But McDonough has been great all year setting up the offense. And even though he only had a goal, which was huge to get Northeastern going, he's got a lot of assists this year setting up guys around him. He's not just nipping shots anymore. He's looking for other people around him. And his presence was felt all night. He did have some quality shots on goal. He had 3 shots on goal on the night, scoring on 1 of them. And then also Northeastern's defense stopped BU and played. I would say it was different than the way they played BU earlier in the year. Because the way they played BU earlier in the year, they let BU dominate the pace of play. And even though Northeastern won one of the games and split the other one and lost the other game in OT, they let BU dominate the pace of play. And that's what Northeastern didn't do last night. Northeastern didn't let BU dominate the pace of play. Honestly, it felt like Northeastern, after they scored that first goal by Aiden McDonough, they dominated the pace of play and dominated their presence on the ice. You just had a feeling that this was Northeastern's night. When they went up 1-0, I said, all right, they have to start out hot, and that's exactly what they did. It just felt like the puck was in Northeastern's hand all night, or on their stick all night. Even though BU won in shots on goal 34-29, Devin Levi had some acrobatic saves. He had a great night. It just seemed like Northeastern was going to win that game. And so, all in all, Northeastern wins that game 3-1, and they'll be facing Harvard for the first time in the Beanpot final. It took 70 years for that to happen, but lo and behold, here we are in the 70th Beanpot. And me and Mark Walsh actually met up before the game yesterday. I went to get lunch with him around 1:30. I didn't have class yesterday, so ended up meeting up with him earlier in the day. Got lunch at 1:30. And as we were sitting at Tasty Burger, we were talking to a guy who was rooting for Harvard and Northeastern. He was unaware that they've never been a Beanpot final matchup. He said, oh, that's going to happen tonight then. He said, that's what I'm rooting for. And credit to him on that. He was right. That was exactly what happened. That was the Beanpot final matchup. We talked a little football with him as well. He's rooting for the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl. He doesn't like the Chiefs at all. As a Giants fan, you really can't root for the Eagles. I do respect how far they've come, though, and I do like some players on that team like James Bradbury, and I'm a big fan of Darius Slay as well. But I can't root for the Eagles in the Super Bowl, considering I'm a Giants fan. I do respect the Eagles, though, and I'm hoping for a good football game. I'm going to preview the Super Bowl as well. I'll probably do a whole preview of the Super Bowl, whether it's tonight or in a podcast upload later in the week. We'll see where we get to tonight. With the Super Bowl being Sunday, I may do one maybe Saturday just right before game time and give my full predictions then. But as for Northeastern versus Harvard next week, they've played each other once this year, and Northeastern got absolutely walloped in that game. Harvard's a top 10 team in the country, so anytime you travel to them and they're at their home arena, you're obviously going to be playing a game where you're going to be down advantage-wise with Harvard playing so well all year at home. Northeastern found themselves down in the game at one point, 6-3, or 7-3 that is, before Jack Hughes got a goal to make it 7-4 in the third period. But the reason why I mentioned that is because it really wasn't a game at all. It was 3-0. Then Northeastern made it 3-3. Then after that, Harvard scored the next 4 goals between the second period with 5 minutes to go and the third period with about 13 minutes to go. It was 7-3 with 13 minutes to go, and it just really wasn't a game. Even though Northeastern tied it, getting 3 consecutive goals from Gunnar Wolf-Fontaine, Aiden McDonough, and Matt Ciupani in the second period, all within a 4-minute stretch. They made it 3-3, and then over the next 5 to 7 minutes, or 12 minutes overall, Harvard scored 4 goals between that second and third period stretch, making that game 7-3, winning the game overall 8-4. And that just was not Devin Levi's night. Levi struggled in net, and that was probably his worst game of the season overall. He did struggle against Western Michigan, but overall, Levi giving up 8 goals in 34 shots faced, only had 26 saves on the night, and only had 5 saves in the first period, giving up, 2 goals in the first period on 7 shots faced. It was not Levi's night, and that's one thing that Harvard does well, just like BU. They dominate the pace of play. And I was concerned with the way BU played against Northeastern earlier in the year. They dominated the pace of play, and that's what I said Northeastern has to do. They cannot let BU dominate the pace of play, and that's what Northeastern didn't do last night. Harvard, in their OT period against BC, even in the third period, they let BC dominate the pace of play. And BC had a ton of rushes and scoring opportunities. And so going into next week, one thing Northeastern has to do is not let Harvard dominate the pace of play. And Harvard's not going to make many mistakes. They will not make many mistakes. They're 5th best in college hockey in limiting penalties per game. And Northeastern's in the bottom 20 in limiting penalties per game. So it's vice versa. Northeastern has to limit their mistakes, which they didn't really do last year. They still had 4 penalties, which is right there with their season average. But as for Harvard, they've been playing with such a great pace besides that third period yesterday, and that's what Northeastern has to do. If Harvard wants to win this game, they have to dominate the pace of play like they've been doing and get more shots on goal. Last night, they were outshot by BC heavily in that game, actually. 46 or 48 to 25. BC outshot Harvard. So by 23 shots, BC outshot Harvard. And that's what you can't do. You don't want to give up too many opportunities. And even though BC's opportunities weren't really as many great shots, you still don't want a team to get 48 shots on goal against you, especially when you only have 25. So that's one thing they have to tone it down with. As for BU, they did outshoot Northeastern 34 to 29 last night, which, even with that being said, Northeastern still gets the win at the end of the day, and you obviously want to win. Same thing with Harvard. Even if you get outshot to the degree they both did, a win's a win at the end of the day, and that's most important always. As for BU last night, they led in shots on goal 34 to 29. One thing that Northeastern has to do tomorrow is next Monday that is, not let Harvard dominate in shots on goal and in pace of play. Because Harvard last night let BC just rip shots, and they were comfortable with playing a conservative defense and just letting Gibson in net have a good game. And that's what they did, and it worked out for them. They ended up winning the game 4-3 in overtime. But the strategy for Northeastern next week has to be, do not let Harvard dominate the pace of play, limit mistakes, get going early, score early, and score the first goal of the game. If you don't score the first goal of the game, score the second, and let Devin Levi go to work. And it's kind of similar to their strategy last night. And as for Harvard, I mean, they're probably going to play conservative defense, but use their speed and get quality shots on goal. They probably go quality shots on goal rather than quantity. That's what they did last night. Rather than shooting 10 okay shots on goal, they'd rather shoot 5 shots on goal, with 3 of those being excellent opportunities. That's probably what they're going to do tomorrow night as well. So we'll see what they do in that game, or Monday night, next Monday night at the TD Garden. I'll give some predictions for that maybe later in the week, but as of now, I'm going to go with Northeastern winning this game. Northeastern lost them 8-4 in the regular season. They're going to be hungry to get revenge, and Northeastern's been great, winning three of the last 4 Beanpot tournament finals. I'm going to go with Northeastern winning that game 3-2. I think Northeastern has to keep, just like I said last night, if Northeastern wants to beat BU, they have to keep BU under 3 shots scored on the night. And that's what they had to do. They had to hold BU to 2 goals or less. And that's what they did. I said to BC, if they want to beat Harvard, they have to hold Harvard to 2 goals or less. BC ends up giving up 4 goals, they lose. Northeastern gives up less than 2 goals, they win. I'm going to go with Northeastern winning this game next week, 3-2. You have to hold Harvard to 2 goals or less, and that way you can get a win in the Beanpot final next week and win the 4th of their last 5th Beanpot final. If the Northeastern were to win next week, it would be 4 of the last 5 Beanpot finals wins for Northeastern. So now I'm going to move on from the Beanpot, and I'm going to talk about some NBA news. Kyrie Irving being traded from the Brooklyn Nets to the Dallas Mavericks. I'm going to talk about what the package looks like, talk about what some other packages look like across the NBA, and then also give my thoughts about the trade overall and how I feel about Kyrie Irving. I'm going to do that in just 1 second, and then get back with you guys in just about 30 seconds. So Kyrie Irving was traded. Now I'm going to break down the package for Spencer Dinwiddie, who now returns to the Brooklyn Nets, Dorian Finney-Smith, a second-round pick in 2027, a first-round pick in 2029 that was unprotected, and also a 2029 second-round pick. So Brooklyn gets Dinwiddie, Finney-Smith, 2 second-round picks, and an unprotected first-round pick in 2029. And the Brooklyn Nets will be sending Kyrie Irving and Markieff Morris to the Dallas Mavericks. All in all, that's a trade package with 2 second-round picks, that is, a first-round pick, Finney-Smith, and then also Dinwiddie being the package going to the Brooklyn Nets with Irving and Morris going to the Dallas Mavericks. And I'm going to break down the whole tenure for Kyrie Irving in Brooklyn. And everyone knows Kyrie Irving. I mean, he's always in the media for something, whether it was the vaccine situation, his anti-Semitic comments, his ability just to quit on teams. He quit on the Cavaliers and requested a trade, just like the Celtics, saying he's going to stay in Boston and then leaving, just like he's stomping on the Lucky logo at the Celtics game. Kyrie Irving's been all over the place in the media over the last 5 years. And that's one thing you know about Kyrie Irving, he's going to be a distraction. Whether he's skipping Brooklyn Nets games and not telling the coaching staff that he's not going to go and instead is on Zoom calls online with conference calls between certain community groups in New York City, or he's just outright not playing and choosing not to play against the Milwaukee Bucks as a Celtic in that playoff series in 2019, I believe it was. Kyrie Irving, or 2018 maybe, Kyrie Irving has just consistently quit on his teams that he's played for. The Cleveland Cavaliers with LeBron James, quit. The Boston Celtics, by year 2, quit. The Brooklyn Nets, by year 3, quit. I guess technically year 4, this is his 4th season in Brooklyn, but Kyrie Irving overall is a player that you cannot trust. And I don't agree with many of Colin Cowherd's takes. I think when I look at a lot of his takes, I feel like we're not always eye to eye, especially about what he says about Daniel Jones. I don't really agree with him much ever about Daniel Jones. But one thing that he said the other day, which I agree with on his show The Herd on Fox Sports, and that's FS1, but one thing that he said that I agreed with was that he said Kyrie Irving is like a bad business partner. If you're unreliable as a business partner, and you're unreliable once, and you show time after time that you're unreliable, how can you rely on that person and believe them and trust them? How can they be trustworthy still to you? And for some reason, Kyrie Irving still gets the trust from other teams. I mean, if the Mavericks said, yes, we'll make that deal and not care about the Kyrie Irving situation of him always choosing to quit on teams, I mean, it shows a lot about Kyrie's talent. Because if he can consistently quit on teams, the teams will still take a chance on him. I mean, that's impressive on its own. That's impressive on its own that teams will still take a chance on him. He's still one of the most talented players in the NBA, one of the most talented point guards in the NBA. He's very gifted with his ball handling skills. He's a scorer. I mean, he's averaging 27.1 points per game this year in 40 games played. In his Brooklyn Nets, 4 seasons, he averaged 27.4, 26.9, 27.4, and 27.1 points per game. So consistently in 4 years, 27 points per game. And if you look at what he's doing shooting-wise, 39% from 3, 40% from 3, 42% from 3, and 37% from 3 in his 4 years. Kyrie Irving's a good player. I mean, you can't deny his talent. Very talented player. But I think the risk of adding him to your locker room and also the risk of having him under contract and not knowing what you're going to get out of him and when he's going to quit, because it's not if Kyrie Irving's going to quit. He will quit. It's when Kyrie Irving will quit on your franchise. He did it on the Celtics, as I said, did it on the Cavs, and he did it on the Brooklyn Nets as well. Kyrie Irving will consistently always quit on you. And that's why I worry. How can you trust Kyrie Irving? I mean, the Dallas Mavericks, Mark Cuban must have signed off on that deal. Luka Doncic, superstar in the Dallas Mavericks, got asked, hey, you okay with this deal? And he was obviously okay with it. The Mavericks went forward with it and made it happen. But how can you trust Kyrie Irving? How? I mean, there's always controversies around that guy. Just problems follow Kyrie Irving. And a lot of it's him doing it to himself. And that's the thing. I don't think you can deny Kyrie Irving's talent. He's still a great player. I mean, he's averaging 27 points per game on the year, shooting 48% from the floor, 37% from 3, 5 rebounds, 5 assists with a steal per game, and 0.8 blocks per game in 40 games played. But you never know what you're going to get out of him. I mean, if you look at Kyrie Irving in his 3 years with the Brooklyn Nets, or 4 years that is, 3.5 seasons, he only played 74 games with Kevin Durant, 3.5 seasons. 74 games. And obviously there's reasons for that, right? Kevin Durant tearing his Achilles and needing a year to rehab. Kyrie Irving's vaccine situation. Kyrie Irving being hurt. His leave of absence from the team due to anti-Semitic comments. His suspension due to off-the-court issues. And other things around Kyrie Irving and just choosing not to play and just not showing up to practice and showing up to games and not telling at the time head coach Steve Nash he's not going to go. He only played 74 games with Kevin Durant. They didn't even play a full season together in 4 seasons. 3.5 years. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving didn't play a full season together. So since joining the Brooklyn Nets in the 2019 offseason, they only played 74 games together. 74 games. And now you look at it, they made a lot of moves to try to build. This is the Brooklyn Nets. Joe Tsai and Sean Marks made a lot of moves to build around Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Right? They made a lot of moves. And I'm going to break down a few of those right now. So all in all, right, let's start with the timeline of the Brooklyn Nets since 2019. June of 2019, the Brooklyn Nets signed Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. January of 2021, so a year and a half later, the Brooklyn Nets trade a package to land James Harden from the Houston Rockets. A year and a month later, 13 months later, February 2022, James Harden is traded to the Philadelphia 76ers. Just a year after that, February of 2023, Kyrie Irving is traded to the Dallas Mavericks. So you get them signing Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in 2019, June of 2019. You trade for James Harden in January of 2021, who you end up moving in February of 2022. And then February of 2023, just a year later, Kyrie Irving is traded. So all in all, I mean, there's just never been a consistency with the Brooklyn Nets team. You just cannot trust a team with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. And obviously, Durant's showing up to play. I don't really blame Durant for the reason the Nets have only gotten 74 games out of Durant and Kyrie, even though Durant has had his injuries. When Durant's healthy, he does show up to play. That's one thing you can say about Durant. When he's healthy, he does show up to play. As for Irving, that's not the same. The vaccine situation, the leave of absence, the anti-Semitic comments, giving him a suspension by the team. I mean, all in all, Kyrie Irving has created a lot of his own problems. And you look at Kyrie Irving, 74 games in that short era with the Brooklyn Nets in 3.5 seasons. And it's not just Kevin Durant. I mean, obviously, yeah, there was a reason Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving only played 74 games together, and partly is to blame on Kevin Durant's injuries. But it's more to blame on Kyrie Irving. He only played 143 games of a possible 278 regular season games during his Brooklyn Nets tenure. He played barely half of his possible games played, potential games he could play, during his Brooklyn Nets tenure. He played 143 of a possible 278 regular season games. And Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant only played 74 games of a possible 206 games after that injury, or since that injury that Kevin Durant had in that 2019 offseason. He ended up getting surgery on that and missing that entire season in the 2019-2020 season. But all in all, they only played 74 of 206 games together after Kevin Durant returned from his Achilles injury. And obviously, yeah, you got to factor in the 72 games in the 2020 and 2021 season, which obviously that was shortened due to the pandemic. But all in all, 278 games Kyrie could have played in his tenure with the Nets. He only played 143. Out of the 206 games that Kevin Durant was healthy for after the Achilles injury with Kyrie Irving, he only played 74 games with Kevin Durant. And now you look at the tenure of Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden. They only played 10 games together. 10 games together in just about a year. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Ben Simmons played just 24 games together. 24 games. So you look at what the Nets have been since Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving joined them. Since the 2019-2020 season. Kyrie Irving, and I've said this now a million times, only played 74 games with Kevin Durant, right? They only won one playoff series together and had a 6-7 playoff record when both Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving played. They played 74 of a total 298 regular season games, meaning they only played just about a quarter of the games, 24.8% of possible regular season games together. And they had a 47-27 record in that 74-game stretch. So how can you look at that and say, yeah, we can trust Kyrie Irving? I mean, yes, you look at his stats, he's unreal. He's unreal. Kyrie Irving, his stats and his talent on the floor, yes, he's a very good player. And here's the thing, I don't think his talent, though, is the same level as the risk of having him on your team. I think he brings you down more than he brings you up. And Luka Doncic, a young player who wants the ball and likes to play a lot of ISO, Kyrie Irving likes to do the same thing. Even though Doncic is having a great season, 33 points per game, shooting 50% from the floor, 35% from three, 9 rebounds a game, 8 assists, with 1.5 steals and 0.5 blocks. I don't think they're going to be a great fit. I don't really like the mixture of Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. Mind you, Kyrie Irving's looking at a 4-year, $198 million extension. He's a free agent at the end of this season. So that's what the Brooklyn Nets didn't want to give. They didn't want to give him the money. They didn't want to invest in Kyrie Irving anymore, and that's partly the reason that he requested a trade and ended up getting moved before this week's trade deadline coming up. And the NBA trade deadline coming up is just about a week away, or less than a week away, by the end of this week, February 9th. So some guys on the move, I mean, considering the fact that who knows what the Brooklyn Nets are going to do with Kevin Durant. There was a report yesterday that Stephen A. Smith said the Celtics were looking in to Kevin Durant and could be potentially shopping Jaylen Brown in a deal to land KD. I don't know if I believe in that as much. I mean, I think if you look at it, yes, Kevin Durant, unreal talent, right? And I think still he's a top 3 player in the NBA. And I don't think, though, he would fit on a team with Jason Tatum as well as most people would think. You probably have a 4-year window winning with Kevin Durant. Jaylen Brown, maybe 6 to 8 years if Jaylen Brown were to stay and get an extension. But we'll see what happens there, but I don't think Kevin Durant will be moved. I think he will be staying with the Brooklyn Nets and maybe be moved in the offseason. I mean, Rudy Gobert brought the NBA trade market all the way up with the deal that he got, traded from the Utah Jazz to the Minnesota Timberwolves. But then Kyrie Irving's deal kind of brought that down a little bit. And obviously, Kevin Durant would be getting traded for more than Kyrie Irving did, but we'll see what happens there. But as for the Brooklyn Nets, I don't think it's a bad deal at all. You get 3 draft picks. You get Spencer Dinwiddie back to the Brooklyn Nets where he thrived earlier in his career. Dinwiddie had a very good tenure with the Brooklyn Nets before he was traded from the Brooklyn Nets to the Washington Wizards. But I don't mind the Spencer Dinwiddie move going back there. He was traded at one point from the Brooklyn Nets to the Washington Wizards in a 5-team trade in August of 2021. He was a great player, though, with the Brooklyn Nets in his 5 seasons there. He averaged, let me see here, I'll tell you his stats. He averaged, these are all advanced stats here. I got to get his regular stats. Here we go. He averaged 14.3 points per game, including 20.6 points per game in the 2019-2020 season, where he started 49 of 64 games played. Also shooting in that season very well from the floor, or overall in his tenure with the Nets, shooting 42% from the floor, but shooting 33% from 3. But one thing about Dinwiddie is, you know, when he's healthy, he's going to play, and he's going to give you everything he's got on the floor. He's going to give you everything he's got. And I think one thing is, I think the Nets knew we're not going to really get much back for Kyrie if he only has a year left of his deal or half a season left, and who knows if he's going to stay. And obviously a lot of question marks around Kyrie Irving and whether or not he's going to show up and play. And I don't mean to roast Kyrie Irving. I don't. I think he's a very talented player, but knowing what he did to the Celtics, the Cavs, and now the Brooklyn Nets, you got to think he's going to do the same to the Dallas Mavericks. You have to think that. And another thing is, the Dallas Mavericks, I mean, Kyrie Irving's not great on defense, and neither is Luka Doncic. Luka's better on teams than Kyrie Irving is, but that team can be beaten in the playoffs. I mean, that team isn't that great defensively. And what the Brooklyn Nets are getting back, I mean, they're getting a guy in Spencer Dinwiddie who was averaging 18 points per game, shooting 82% from the free throw line. He's a very good free throw shooter over his career, shooting 45% from the floor and 41% from 3 on the year, averaging 5 assists, 3 rebounds, and also shooting a 55% effective field goal percentage on the year. And then the Nets are also getting Dorian Finney-Smith, who's been playing very well this season. He's 29 years old, averaging 9 points per game, 5 rebounds, and assist per game, shooting 75% from the free throw line, and overall 42% from the floor and 36% from 3. He started 40 of 40 games for the Mavericks this past season, or during this season, and since the 2019-2020 season, he's played 251 games for the Mavericks, starting 248 games, getting 32 minutes a game, scoring 10 points a game, 5.2 rebounds, 1.7 offensive rebounds per game. He helps you a little bit in the paint, averaging a steal per game, half a block per game, and also shooting 59% from 2-point range, 38% from the 3-point line, and 46% overall from the floor, averaging 72% from the free throw line. So you're getting a little bit of help and a little bit of size. He's 6'7". He can play the power forward and the small forward position. I think he's typically a power forward, at least it seemed like in the Mavericks lineup. But I think if you look at it, the Celtics and the Brooklyn Nets which I know now if you look at the Kevin Durant situation, I don't think the Brooklyn Nets are as much of a threat, though, now with Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith in their lineup. So that's one less team I think the Celtics have to worry about. Even though they still have Kevin Durant on the Nets, and the Nets are still a good team, I wouldn't worry as much talent-wise. Ben Simmons has had a bad season. I know the Nets would like to trade him, but there's no market for Ben Simmons around the market. There's no market or anyone that really wants him. There's no really interest around the market for Ben Simmons. He's really had a bad season. I don't think this trade really helps. Even that helps the Brooklyn Nets, I still think, though, the Celtics can beat them. So it's one less team that the Celtics have to worry about. And the reason why I'm going back to the Celtics here is Tim Loftus, probably the biggest fan of the show. Tim, you're an absolute legend. I appreciate you always listening in. He said, should Brad Stevens be looking for a backup to Al Horford? Yes, I would agree with you there. And the main reason I would say that is not because Al Horford, he gets solid minutes in there, and same thing with Robert Williams when he's out there. But I don't know if you can really rely on Blake Griffin in the playoffs, even though when he does get minutes, he does give you all he's got. But you can't really rely on Robert Williams to stay healthy, and that's the main reason I would go get a backup big man, whether it's a 4 or a 5. I think the Celtics should be looking into one. Even though Myles Turner is highly unlikely now to get traded, probably considering the deal he just got from the Indiana Pacers. He got a 2-year, $80 or $58 million extension just about a week or so ago now from the Indiana Pacers. Even though he still could be traded, I still don't see him getting moved, even though I'd like to see him on the Celtics. I think he's having too good of a season, and considering the Indiana Pacers are having as good of a year as anyone thought, no one really thought the Pacers would be having a good season. I don't see them trading a guy like Myles Turner. They're 25-30, but overall 2-8 in their last 10 games. But if you take out those last 10 games, they were 23 and 22, and just in the mix for a playoff run. And they're still technically a play-in team. So I don't think they're going to completely rip it up and trade Myles Turner. They might do that in the offseason, just hold on to Myles Turner. But right now you could get high value for him, considering it could be 2.5 seasons a team could go on a run with Myles Turner as their starting center. So we'll see, but I don't think Myles Turner will be on the move. I know that is a guy that garnered a lot of interest in the trade market over the summer, but Turner on the year averaged 2.4 blocks per game, 1.3 assists, 8.1 rebounds, shooting 39% from 3, 54% from the floor, 17.7 rebounds per game in 46 games played. You look at his last 6 seasons for the Pacers, 2.7 blocks per game, 2.1, 3.4, 2.8, and 2.4 blocks per game. He is dominant on the defensive end. I would love to see him, whatever team I'm a fan of, whether you want to say I'm a Clippers fan, Celtics fan, Kings fan, one of those 3 teams I would love to see Myles Turner on. And I don't think he's going to get moved, though. Every single night, this guy can give you 3 or 4 blocks. Any given night, he can give you 10 rebounds and 3 or 4 blocks and 20 points. I think he's one of the most valuable players in the NBA. Right under the superstar level, I see him as a very good star. I think he's one of the most valuable players in the NBA because of what he can do on both ends of the floor. He can shoot 3 or 6 from 3, give you 13 rebounds, give you 4 blocks, and score 20 points a night with 2 or 3 steals. Even though he's averaging only 0.6 steals per game, he can go off any given night for 2 or 3 steals with 3 or 4 blocks. But I do agree with you, Tim. I think the Celtics should go get a backup big man, and I'm sure they'll be in the market for that. Hopefully, this trade deadline. There's only a couple days to go, but we'll see what happens there, and if the Celtics were to go make a move for a guy. But anyways, that's my Kyrie Irving talk. I don't really believe as much in the Mavericks as most people do. I think Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, has a lot of talent together, just like I think Jason Tatum and Kevin Durant would be a lot of talent together. But I don't think Durant would gel as well with Jason Tatum as most people would think, just like I don't think Kyrie Irving's going to gel as well with Luka Doncic. But one thing about Kevin Durant is when he is on your team, he does show up and he gives you his all. And that's one thing you cannot get from Kyrie Irving. You don't know what you're going to get from Kyrie Irving. Is he going to give you his all? You never know. You never know if Kyrie Irving's going to give you his all. And the Celtics right now with 38-16, hold the best record in the NBA, a 704 win percentage, the number 1 seed in the East, 6-4 in their last 10 games played. Then you get the Bucks 37-17, winning 9 of their last 10 games. They've won 8 straight. And then you got the Western Conference. Some teams are struggling as of late. The Pelicans, I talked about them about a month ago now with my buddy Dylan. We were talking NBA playoffs or NFL playoffs just about 2 or 3 weeks ago. The Pelicans have won just 2 of their last 10 games. They're now the 9th seed in the West. The Clippers, 8-2 in their last 10 games. They're starting to get going. 31-26 on the year, winning 2 games straight. Had a big win last night over the Brooklyn Nets, which they were struggling actually at one point in that game. I was at the Beanpot, so I wasn't really watching that entire Nets game, Clippers game. I only tuned in for maybe a second. I was really just checking scores overall. But the Clippers outscored the Nets 33-28 in the fourth quarter. The Clippers found themselves down, though, they found themselves down 113-109 with 3:29 to go, down by 4 points. The Clippers went on an 11-3 run to close out the game, including some big shots from Nick Batum. He had a cutting layup, also hit a free throw in there as well. Reggie Jackson had a dunk. Paul George hit a free throw. Reggie Jackson had a huge steal as well, and just about a minute to go. And then Kawhi Leonard played well as always in under 3 minutes to go, hitting a big three, 2 free throws, and the Clippers also got a nice jump shot with about 3 minutes to go from Paul George. Paul George had a very good night, 29 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, shooting 10-20 from the floor, 3-7 from 3. The Clippers got 19 points from Vita Zubac, 12 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 block, and 3 steals. Reggie Jackson, very good night, 12 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and 3 steals. Terrence Mann, 12 points, 9 rebounds. And then Nick Batum was unreal on the defensive glass. 11 rebounds to go along with 9 points, 3 assists, a block, and shooting 3 of 8 from the floor and 1 of 4 from 3. Luke Kennard finally got back in the rotation last night, got 14 minutes of action, scoring 3 points with 1 steal, and had a plus 12 rating, shooting 1 of 4 from 3. Wasn't his best night shooting, but he was a DNP at one point earlier last week. Robert Covington did not play in yesterday's game. John Wall is still out for that Clippers team. But the Clippers are finally getting going, winning 8 of their last 10 games. I couldn't be any happier. So that's a look at the landscape of the NBA and what the standings look like across the NBA over the last few weeks. As for the number 1 seed in the West, the Denver Nuggets have been hot still all season, 37-17, 6-4 right now in their last 10 games. It looks like they're going to trade point guard Bones Hyland, though. That's all around the market that Bones Hyland will be moved at some point by tomorrow, so 2 days trade deadline from now. So 48 hours from now, he will be moved. The Memphis Grizzlies have been shaky of their last 10 games. It's still the number 2 seed in the West, 32-21 on the year, but have won just 2 of their last 10 games, losing 3 in a row. And that's one team that, if you look at it all in all, they do have a lot of firepower, but have been cold as of late, and maybe they go make a move at the trade deadline to build around Ja Morant, get maybe one more piece around him that can score. As for Bones Hyland, though, on the year, that's one guy that probably will be moved. A lot of people have been talking about that over the last few days. On the year, off the bench, 42 games played, has only started 1 game, so he's been consistently off the bench in 41 games. 12 points off the bench on the year, shooting 38% from 3, 40% from the floor, also averaging 1.8 defensive rebounds per game to go over 2 total rebounds, 3 assists, 0.7 steals, and 0.3 blocks. He can give you a good amount of energy off the bench any given night. And that's one guy, if a team needs a backup point guard or shooting guard, he can play both, kind of a combo guard. They can go make a move for a guy like that. But we'll see where he gets moved by the trade deadline. So all in all, that's my NBA talk. I want to give a whole landscape of the NBA over the last week or so. Talk about the Kyrie Irving trade. One thing is tonight, LeBron James could be going to break the NBA regular season point scoring title, which Kareem Abdul-Jabbar holds right now, which he would be at the Lakers game tonight. LeBron James is just 36 points away from the title, which, let me see, I want to make sure I'm exactly right here of where he's at. But tonight is that game. LeBron James will be going for the title. 36 points away from passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the NBA all-time leading scorer. He could do that tonight against, I believe they are playing the Thunder. Yes, the Lakers are home tonight. First, the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Lakers 25-29 on the year. Oklahoma City Thunder 25-28. The Thunder are 5-5 over their last 10. The Lakers are 5-5 as well over their last 10, losing their last game to the Pelicans, who, as I said, the Pelicans have won just 2 games in the last 8, and at one point lost 10 games in a row before winning the last 2. The Lakers somehow did lose to them the other night in New Orleans, losing that game by 5 on Saturday night. But they will be home tonight versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Lakers are 6.5-point favorites. LeBron James on the year has been unreal, even though he's in year 20. Let me see what LeBron James' season is. I believe it's year 20. I want to make sure I get that right. But year 20 for LeBron, and he's had such a historic career overall. I mean, that's one thing is you can't deny LeBron's talent. You can't deny his talent. Yes, year 20 it is. Year 20 for LeBron, and he's still averaging 30 points per game to go along with 0.9 steals per game, 8.5 rebounds, and 7.1 assists, shooting 76% from the free throw line, 59% from two-point range, 31% from three, 50.5% from the floor, and putting up 36.5 minutes per game overall. LeBron, overall in the year, or in the last 2 years, that is, I wanted to break down the stats. He averaged 30.3 points per game last year for the Lakers in his 19th season in the NBA. And you look at LeBron right now, he's 38 years old. He's averaging 30 points per game. Over his last 2 seasons with the Lakers, 30.2 points per game, shooting 60.7% from two-point range, 76% from the free throw line, 7.2 defensive rebounds per game, 8.3 total rebounds per game, 6.6 assists, and 1.1 steals per game to go with 0.8 blocks, shooting 33.9% from the three-point line over his last 2 seasons. I think LeBron James' his last 2 seasons are 2 of his most impressive seasons of his entire career. And look at what he's been doing, averaging 37 and 36 minutes per game over his last 2 seasons. 37.2 minutes per game and that was 2 seasons now, 2 seasons ago, not this season, but last season, was LeBron's highest total since the 2016-2017 season. And 36.5 points per game is his second highest total since the 2017-2018 season. And overall, 30.3 and 30 points per game are 2 of LeBron's 4 highest scoring seasons of his career. He averaged 30 points per game this season. He averaged 30 points per game in the 2007-2008 season. He averaged 30.3 points per game in the 2021-2022 season last year in his age 37 season. And then in his 3rd season in the NBA, at just 21 years old, averaged 31.4 points per game. So LeBron can go for the record tonight. Overall, the Lakers 25-29 on the year. They traded for Rui Hachimura last week from the Washington Wizards. And Hachimura, for them so far, has played, I think, a limited amount of games. He's only been there for about 5 games or so, but has been playing decently for them. 6 games played, 4 games started, 11 points per game. He's been averaging 6.2 rebounds with 0.5 steals, 0.5 assists, and has also been shooting 46% from the floor, 52% from two-point range, and 31% from the three. One thing is that he's been struggling at the free throw line all season, averaging just 69% from the free throw line and 52% from the free throw line for the Lakers in just 6 games played. The Lakers did need a backup center, though, to Anthony Davis whenever Anthony Davis needs a rest. And Hachimura is more of a power forward, but he can play a smaller 5, even though he's 6'8". He can play a smaller 5 for you. And he's now paired back up with Thomas Bryant, who he played in Washington with for a couple seasons. He was with Washington from 2019 to 2022. And then you look at Thomas Bryant, he played with the Washington Wizards from 2018 to 2022 as well. So played about 3 or 4 seasons in Washington with him before going back to LA. Started his career in LA. That's Bryant. Started his career in LA in 2017, 2018, and then just went back to the Lakers this year, starting 25 or 40 games, averaging 12 points per game, 6.9 rebounds, and averaging just under a steal per game, or half a steal per game, 0.5 steals per game, just about, and 0.6 blocks per game, shooting 44% from three-point range, which is the best of his career. So that's a look at the NBA. Tonight could be the night LeBron breaks the record. And now I'm going to do a quick Super Bowl preview, which I'm going to do one later in the week. I think I'm going to do a full Super Bowl preview, probably maybe Saturday. I want to do maybe a little bit of one tonight, but maybe I'll do another one before the game Saturday and give my final thoughts, and maybe all the guests come on with me to give their talk of the Super Bowl and what they think is going to happen. But all in all, right now, the Kansas City Chiefs are 1.5-point underdogs. Philly's favored in this game by 1.5 points. Philly on the year, Kansas City both share the same record, 14-3. The Chiefs won the AFC Championship game over the Cincinnati Bengals, winning that game 23-20. They got a field goal to win the game as time expired, or just under before time expired, 8 seconds to go. Got a 45-yard field goal from Harrison Butker, winning the game 23-20. Joseph Asai, a linebacker on the Bengals, who had a very good game overall in the game, played very well. He was the best tackler on that team on the night. Just struggled, though. He did have 5 total tackles with 2 assisted tackles and 2 quarterback hits, which was number 1 on that Bengals defense. Had a very good game. Von Bell did lead that team. Led that team in tackles with 7. But Asai had a very good game and ended up trying to make a play on Patrick Mahomes, and Mahomes was scrambling out of bounds just about midfield. Asai hit Mahomes as his right foot already hit out of bounds. Ends up drawing a penalty, and I don't blame Asai because when you're playing as quick as you are, you're trying to get Mahomes keep Mahomes in bounds so the clock keeps running since the Kansas City Chiefs didn't have a timeout, and that's why they kicked a field goal with 8 seconds to go. You're trying to keep Mahomes in bounds and also, give him a little bit of hit, and maybe if you're going to hit him, force him out of bounds rather than trying to, let him get an extra yard or two, right? And that's the tough thing about a defender. You don't want to let the runner get an extra yard, but you also at the same time don't want to hit him late and have him step out of bounds and draw a 15-yard penalty. And that's what happened. Tough penalty call, and that set up the Kansas City Chiefs to win that game 23-20. Overall in that game, Burrow's 26 of 41 passing with a touchdown, 2 picks. Not Burrow's cleanest game. Not Joe Mixon's cleanest game either. 8 carries and 19 yards. Did not have a touchdown in that game. T. Higgins, though, did shine well in that game. 6 catches, 83 yards with a touchdown on 10 targets. As for the Chiefs, Mahomes played very well. 326 passing yards and 29 of 43 passing. Did add in 3 carries for 8 yards with 2 touchdowns passing and a 105.4 passer rating. Travis Kelce, 7 catches, 78 yards, and a touchdown. And my boy, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, 6 catches on 8 targets and 116 yards and a touchdown on the game with a long of 29, averaged 19.3 yards per catch and had 39 yards after the catch overall in the game. Really like what I've seen out of Marquez Valdes-Scantling, considering Mecole Hardman came back and then got hurt again. Kadarius Toney went down with an injury as well, and Juju Smith-Schuster was hurt as well. And they were down to just Sky Moore, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Travis Kelce, and one other receiver, I believe. Kansas City was down to just the end of their receiving core. Kemp they had as their last wide receiver on the depth chart. They really just had nothing to play with. They had Marcus Kemp, a backup wideout, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and Sky Moore, and Travis Kelce ready to go, and with Kadarius Toney going down with an injury, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling being the only really healthy receiver left that's played some snaps. I mean, Sky Moore got some snaps earlier in the year. He only had 13 yards on 3 catches in the game. Someone had to step up, and that's what MVS did, one of my favorite receivers in the game. I love what I've seen out of MVS in that game. I had a good feeling about MVS. I texted my boy Eric, Easy E, and the sports guru Mike Hurley before that game, and I said, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, masterpiece soon. And that's just what it was. 6 catches, 116 yards, and a touchdown to Valdes-Scantling. And then in that other game, which I'm going to talk about, the Eagles, they won pretty handily over the 49ers in that game, 31-7. Philadelphia was up 21-7 at halftime. The 49ers really couldn't get anything going on offense, only had 164 yards total on offense with 97 passing yards. The Eagles only had 121 yards passing, but only needed that to win the game, 31-7. As for Brock Purdy, he was only 4-4 passing with 23 yards. And you look at that stat line, you'd say, how is he only 4-4 passing? Well, he tore a ligament in his elbow, and that prevents him from being able to throw. And all the throws he had were 1 or 2 yard screens. That offense couldn't get going at all, even with Josh Johnson coming in as the backup quarterback journeyman in the NFL, who's played for probably 15 teams in the NFL, was 7-13 passing, 74 yards. And Christian McCaffrey was in there at quarterback for some snaps, whether it was a handoff or he threw a pass, which was an incompletion as a Wildcat. He was in there, though, for some option plays. He was 15 of 84. Carries-wise, did add 4 carries for 22 yards. And McCaffrey had the solo touchdown for the 49ers in the game, with the Eagles dominating 31-7. You look at the Eagles' road to the playoffs, down the playoffs, dominated the Giants 38-7, dominated the Niners 31-7, outscoring both teams 69-14. And as much as I want to say I want the Chiefs to win, that's my team I want to win, because I really can't root for the Eagles, even though Eazy-E's my boy. Can't root for the Eagles as a Giants fan. I like Mahomes a lot as well. And I like MVS. Hopefully MVS has a good game. I think the Eagles are just so stacked on both sides of the ball. Offensive line, defensive line, pass rush, secondary, skill players. Jalen Hurts is having a very good year. And even though Jalen Hurts is looking for $50 million a year, I don't think he's worth $50 million a year. I think he's worth maybe around 40 tops. He's looking for around 50. Jalen Hurts had a very good season. I think it's going to be a very good game. I'm going to give a full prediction and a preview of it later in the week, maybe Saturday in a podcast upload. I think what this game is going to come down to is who has the ball last, probably. And as of right now, I'd go the Eagles winning this game 31-27. I think the Chiefs will keep it close. I think Travis Kelce is a very good game, but with the question marks around the 49ers, around the Chiefs, and if they're healthy, and that's one thing with the Chiefs is you don't know if these guys are healthy. I mean, these guys are playing banged up. Their receivers are going to all still be banged up going into this game on Sunday night, which this game's at 6:40 or 6:35. That is his kickoff. Let me get the Chiefs' injuries and see who's been practicing as of late. But that's one thing I worry about is their receiving core. And Lane Johnson is ready to go for the Eagles. So even though the Eagles have had their injuries, starting tackle Lane Johnson will be ready to go against the Chiefs. I just read that now. Patrick Mahomes' ankle is doing a lot better. He's feeling a lot better, and he's ready to go. This is what Patrick Mahomes said on his ankle. So there you have it. That was Mahomes talking right there, which I know it's not going to pick up on the Spotify recording, but you guys heard it live on air. He said in the quote, the ankle's getting better and better, and rest is going to help out a ton. The Eagles got a couple of fast guys on their team as well, which he was referencing to the Bengals linebacker core, which he obviously had that run that he had to go out of bounds, and he scrambled to the outside. He showed a little bit of speed on that play. He said, so I might have to pass that miles per hour this week to get away from the the Eagles pass rush there when he gets around the outside. But it looks like there's going to be still some injuries for the Chiefs. It looks like Mecole Hardman wants to play, but is still listed as doubtful for this game. And that's one thing that the Chiefs really can't beat is all these injuries. And even though today, Andy Reid said about Kadarius Toney and Juju Smith-Schuster, they practiced yesterday and they'll practice again today. They look good. We'll see how it goes the rest of the week. You're not 100% sure that Juju Smith-Schuster and Kadarius Toney are going to play. And that's a worry. That's a worry. And also, Andy Reid said about L'Jarius Sneed, he cleared the concussion protocol and said about the Chiefs' injury situation. Everybody practiced yesterday, and it looks good. It looks like they'll do the same today. Who knows if Mecole Hardman will be ready to go, though. I think that guy would still be listed as doubtful. As for the Eagles' injuries heading into the Super Bowl game, Jalen Hurts was banged up with a shoulder injury, but he really hasn't shown that at all too much. And then you had Lane Johnson with an injury. He'll be ready to go. Jalen Hurts will obviously probably be even more healthy now that he's had 2 weeks off. He's probably going to be even more crisp now going into this game. One thing that Brandon Ayuk said, a wide receiver in the 49ers, said the Eagles' defense will be exposed. And he said the 49ers couldn't expose the Phillies' defense because of quarterback injuries, and that the Eagles, that is, got extremely lucky. He said, I don't know fully about that defense. Speaking about the Eagles' defense, they talk about them being a good defense. I'm not sure. I think this Kansas City pass game will expose what we thought we were going to expose, that meaning the Niners offense thought they were going to expose, but for some unfortunate circumstances with Brock Purdy going down with an UCL injury, they got extremely lucky. I would say that the Eagles got extremely lucky. I think the Eagles earned the right to go to the Super Bowl. They had a very good run overall in the year. I think it's going to really come down to whoever has the ball last. And I'm only going to talk now for probably about a couple more minutes now since I'm going to a sports analytics meeting. But overall, you look at these two offenses, right? You got the Kansas City Chiefs, who are number one in the NFL in passing offense, 297 passing yards per game, number one in the NFL, number 5 in attempts per game. You look at the Eagles, averaging 241 passing yards per game, 9th best in the NFL, and they average 32 passing attempts per game, which is 23rd. Touchdowns per game overall on offense, or points per game, that is. The Eagles, 3rd best in the NFL in points per game, 28.1. They're 7th best in points allowed per game at 20 points per game. Pretty even with the Chiefs in points per game. The Chiefs averaging 29.2 points per game, which is number 1 in the NFL. And then you got the Kansas City Chiefs averaging 21.7 points allowed per game, which is 16th in the NFL. So the Chiefs, 29.2 points per game to the Eagles' 28.1, first to third between those two teams respectively. And then points allowed per game, 21.7 allowed for the Chiefs per game, which is 16th best. And then you got the Eagles with the 7th best defense in points per game allowed, averaging 20.2 points per game. But I think it's going to come down to pass rush. And these are the two best pass rushes in the NFL overall in sacks. The Chiefs, 2nd best pass rush in the NFL with 55 sacks on the year. The Eagles, 70 sacks overall on the year. 70 sacks allowed, or 70 sacks total overall on the year, which is number 1 in the NFL. And the Chiefs' offensive line is very good, though. They're still really good. They only gave up 26 sacks overall, which is 3rd best in the NFL on the season. As for the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line, even though it's very talented, they still gave 44 sacks on the year, and that's kind of what happens with a mobile quarterback, and you have option plays where it could be run-pass option. You're due to give up some sacks when the quarterback holds on to it longer, since he can evade the rush a little bit easier than a more, pocket-passing quarterback like Tom Brady could. But overall in this game, I think it's going to come down to who has the ball last, and both teams have weaknesses and strengths. I think the Chiefs, have strength in obviously Patrick Mahomes being their quarterback, a very good quarterback, still the best quarterback in the NFL. And then you look at the Eagles. I mean, they're really good all around. They're good all around, right? And the Chiefs are as well. I mean, they both have very good coaching staffs. Obviously, Nick Sirianni getting to the Super Bowl in just his second season. He was a former offensive assistant for the Kansas City Chiefs, or for the Kansas City Chiefs, that is. And then you got Andy Reid, who was the former head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. Both those teams having head coaches that coached for that their opponent in the past. So you got Andy Reid, former head coach of the Eagles, then you got Nick Sirianni, former offensive assistant for the Chiefs as the Eagles head coach, which is a pretty interesting storyline. But I think it could come down to the run game, and if you look at the run yards, rushing yards per game for either team, the Chiefs were 20th in the NFL in rushing yards per game. The Eagles 147, and that's because they have Jalen Hurts who can do those option plays, run to the outside. They can go end arounds, double end around fakes. They can really open up their playbook wide. I think that's why this Eagles team is dangerous. I'm rooting for the Chiefs to win this game, and I'm with you, Tim. I'm not rooting for the Eagles to win, but I think the Eagles win this game. I'm rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Eagles win this game 31-27. I think it comes down to the fourth quarter. I think the Eagles and the Chiefs are pretty close at halftime. I think it's a 17-14 game at half. And then at the end of the game, maybe you see a Jalen Hurts touchdown with about a minute to go, maybe 2 minutes to go. It's my prediction as of now with the Eagles winning the game 31-27. That's not what I want to happen. That's just what I think is going to happen. If I am going to go by what I want to happen, I'm going to say Chiefs winning 34-21. That's what I want to happen, 34-24. That's what I want to happen, just because I can't root for the Eagles since they beat the Giants and, they're a Giants rival. But I wish, the best of both teams. Obviously, I'm rooting for a good game, and I love Patrick Mahomes. I think he's the best quarterback in the NFL, and I don't really know how you can't root for a guy like Mahomes. I think you have to respect greatness. And I talked about this yesterday with Tom Brady. Tom Brady I was never a fan of when he was on the Patriots. Then he went to the Bucs, and I respected greatness. Steph Curry I was never the biggest fan of when he was compared to LeBron James for all those years. And then what happened? I respected his greatness. Taylor Swift and my siblings. I have a couple of siblings that are big fans of Taylor Swift. And overall, my whole life, I was never the biggest Taylor Swift fan, but over the last year or so, respected some greatness. You have to respect her greatness, and it's not some. She has a lot of greatness. You have to respect greatness and what she does, and obviously has been very talented and doing big things in the music industry for years now. Similar to Harry Styles. And I always thought One Direction was good, but similar to Harry Styles, where Harry Styles is dominating the music industry right now. And even though a lot of people weren't the biggest One Direction fans when they were around, I know a lot of girls are One Direction fans, but overall, a lot of guys weren't One Direction fans. I think you would respect their talent and what they're able to do in the music industry. Very successful and talented artists, and that's why Harry Styles. You have to respect greatness, and I always respected One Direction and Taylor Swift. One Direction and Harry Styles, but Taylor Swift, Steph Curry, and Steph Curry, and Tom Brady. 3 examples right there. I never really respected that much. Which it's not a respect thing, right? You respect what they do, but I was never a fan of them, right? I never said, I'm a fan of their greatness, that's why I respect them. No, I just, I knew they were good at what they do, but I never really was as big a fan. But now I like Taylor Swift. Now I like Tom Brady. Now I like Steph Curry. Because you have to respect greatness. At the end of the day, just like LeBron James. If you're not a LeBron James fan, I get that. Yeah, I mean, he's had his, series with the Celtics, and obviously it's a little bit of a rivalry. He was with the Cavs, and now, obviously, in his years in Miami as well, playing against the Celtics a lot in the playoffs. But you have to respect greatness. I think when LeBron James is out of the league, the NBA will never be the same. Just like now with the NBA, with the NFL, Tom Brady retiring, the NFL will never be the same. Just like if Aaron Rodgers retires, because he's going to take the next 4 days to reflect on whether or not he wants to come back in the NFL. And I'm going to read you a quote that he said about his future in the NFL in just a second. But you never know what you're going to get in the future after your legends leave. When Tom Brady leaves, Aaron Rodgers, what's the NFL going to be like? And according to Aaron Rodgers, he said today on the Pat McAfee show, he's going to go on a darkness retreat in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be 4 days, complete darkness retreat, just him and in a little house, he said. He said, I've had plenty of friends who've done it, and they've found profound experiences, and he expects a decision after that of whether or not he believes he'll be going back for another season in the NFL. And I don't think it's going to be with the Green Bay Packers. I think it could be with the New York Jets, could be the Las Vegas Raiders. Who knows, could be the San Francisco 49ers. I do not think he'll be back with the Green Bay Packers, though, if he were to go back to playing for another year in the NFL. But I think you have to respect greatness. At the end of the day, you have to respect greatness. Taylor Swift, Tom Brady, Harry Styles, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, there's a lot of examples. Aaron Rodgers doesn't win the big games. I always have the Packers winning big games. I know he doesn't win the big games. He only has one Super Bowl. But overall, Aaron Rodgers is a very talented quarterback, and I think you would respect that. And I'm with you, Tim, here. Tim, biggest fan of the show. I appreciate you always listening in. He said, go Mahomes, Kansas City all the way. He's got the Chiefs winning 33-20. Similar to my prediction, I like the Chiefs winning 34-24. If I wanted the Chiefs to win in my prediction, I want the Chiefs to win, but if I had to predict what I think is going to happen, I went with the Eagles, unfortunately, winning 31-27. But if I am basing it off what I want to happen, 34-24 Kansas City, similar to 33-20, which Tim has. He said Andy Reid is an amazing coach. Amazing coach, great guy as well. I love that State Farm commercial where he's taking the Sharpie and doing the mustaches on Patrick Mahomes' face. And Patrick Mahomes said it happened again. And then you got Andy Reid saying, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Very funny commercial. Obviously has a personality as well. And he also commented as well. You had Tim commenting on Aaron Rodgers that he can retire, which I wouldn't mind Aaron Rodgers retiring just because he's given, this now, 2 or 3 seasons now of figuring out whether or not he wants to play. I think at the end of the day, you're going to have to make that decision. I think he likes being in the media a lot and being, the center of attention. And even though I like Aaron Rodgers a lot as a quarterback, I think he's very talented, you can't deny he loves being in the media and being the center of attention. You can't deny that. So we'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers in the future. I think he will probably play one more season, but I think you have to respect greatness. You have to respect greatness. Tom Brady, LeBron James, Taylor Swift, whatever it may be, along those lines of Steph Curry, Harry Styles, Adele. I don't know. We can keep naming artists, right? And all those are well-respected artists, right? Adele's very respected. Steph Curry's very respected. Not too many people are going to hate on either one of those individuals, but there's a lot of hate LeBron James gets. Taylor Swift, a lot of hate, towards both of those. LeBron James heavily, Tom Brady, a lot of hate towards. But I think you have to respect greatness at the end of the day. Because when these guys and these girls and these people aren't left at what they're doing, and done with football, whether it may be Tom Brady being done in the NFL or it's Steph Curry being done in the NBA or LeBron James being done with basketball after 20-plus years, now this is his 20th season, sports, music, whatever they are doing, those industries are not going to be the same without them. They left a mark on those industries that are going to be everlasting. And I don't think you can say that those industries, whether it be sports with Tom Brady being gone, that those will be the same without those. And that's why I respect them. That's why I think you have to respect greatness. Whether or not you like Tom Brady, whether or not you like Eli Manning. I know a lot of Patriots fans hate Eli Manning, and they don't respect him. But you got to respect Eli Manning going up against Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, winning 2 Super Bowls and throwing that pass to Mario Manningham, which in my eyes is the best pass in NFL history. I think if you look at it, a lot of times people don't respect greatness or respect clutch plays by players because either their team lost or they lost a bet. Their team lost, as I said, their team lost against that player, or they lost a bet, or they just aren't a fan of that player overall because they're better than, let's say, I don't know, they don't like Tom Brady because their quarterback is Mitch Trubisky. I don't know, that's an example. Or another example, I'll give you a better one. Or you're a Jets fan or a Dolphins fan, which in for years you had to deal with, Mark Sanchez as your quarterback and with that quarterback carousel for the Jets over the years with Sam Darnold and now Zach Wilson and Mark Sanchez over the years, Ryan Fitzpatrick. You had to deal with the quarterback carousel. There's a lot of reasons why people don't respect a lot of these athletes, but I think at the end of the day, you have to respect greatness. That's why I've been doing that. I've been respecting greatness. I've been respecting talent for a long time, right? As a sports fan, you always have to give props to these athletes and musicians, whatever it may be, for getting to where they got to in the music industry, in the sports industry, because it's not easy to do that. It's not easy to rise in any industry. Whether or not you're a famous person, a musician, an artist, a rapper, a basketball player, baseball player, a writer, whatever it may be, you're a famous poet, whatever it may be, it's hard to be, at the top of any industry. In sales, in business, it's hard to be at the top of any industry, right? And I think that's why you have to respect talent. And even though I always thought Steph Curry's a very good player, I never was a fan of him. But now I find myself being a fan of all these people and players that are at the top of their respective industries because it's not easy to get there, and what they're doing is not everlasting. LeBron James will not be playing basketball forever, and I think that's why you have to respect him. And that's why tonight, which if he hits his 36 points, and that'll be live on TNT, if he were to get 36 points to pass Kareem for the all-time NBA in leading scoring and all-time points in the NBA, that's something you have to respect. That's something you have to respect. LeBron James has been one of the best in the NBA, if not the best, in each of his 20 seasons in the NBA over his career. And he's 38 years old right now. He's 38 years old. And where does he stand right now? 4th in all-time assists in the NBA and 2nd all-time in points. second all-time in points and could pass Kareem Abdul-Jabbar tonight for all-time in NBA scoring in points, which is nuts. LeBron James could pass Kareem Abdul-Jabbar tonight, and Kareem will be live there at the game tonight against the Oklahoma City Thunder. So should be a fun game to watch. As for Super Bowl predictions, I know I went off on a tangent a little bit there about what I was talking about, but as for what I think is going to happen, I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles winning the game 31-27. I think the Eagles all around are too dominant on both sides of the ball, and they're just rolling right now, winning both of their playoff games 69-14. They're very well rested. A lot of guys are healthy besides Lane Johnson. Obviously, Jalen Hurts has found some health as well over the last couple weeks now. Didn't have to really throw too much in that game against the Niners with them winning that game 31-7. It's pretty impressive even that the Giants, got 7 points, and the reverse. It's impressive that the Niners got 7 points, considering, at the end of the day, it looked like their offense couldn't move the ball against a college team, which I never liked the argument that people said, the worst college or the worst NFL team could beat the best college team, or the best college team could beat the best or worst NFL team. There's no college team, whether it's the best college team playing the worst NFL team, that's not going to be possible. I don't care who the quarterback is in the NFL team. The NFL guys playing against NFL players is a lot better competition than playing in college, since you're playing in the NFL against 11-on-11 against guys that are all made in the NFL. College, it's not the same thing. And the reason why I brought that point up is because the line I just said, that the 49ers looked like they couldn't move the ball against Georgia. They couldn't move the ball against Tennessee the way they were playing against the Eagles just about 2 Sundays ago now in the NFC Championship. But all in all, the Eagles didn't throw the ball much in that game. They're well rested. I think they have a lot of momentum going into this game. But as I said, you cannot doubt the Kansas City Chiefs and the greatness of Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid, great coach, as Tim pointed out. I think one of the best in the NFL. I think Sean McVay, that's my boy, which I got to still talk about Sean McVay in some episode. I have some stats about how great of a coach he is and how much he's transformed the NFL and transformed the Los Angeles Rams from when they were with the St. Louis Rams to 1 year with the LA Rams. Then he comes in. They were the LA Rams for 1 year with Jim Fisher, and then McVay came in and transformed the game. And that's something I always respect Sean McVay for what he does as well. He's a great coach. But point being is, Andy Reid, one of the best coaches in the business, and you can't really put anything past him as well. So I'm excited to see what happens in the game on Sunday. As of right now, I'm going to go 31-27 with Patrick Mahomes losing a close one and the Kansas City Chiefs falling in the Super Bowl. But Patrick Mahomes could add on to his greatness and his legacy and win his second Super Bowl ring. And if you look at it, Patrick Mahomes is only in his 6th season in the NFL. So Patrick Mahomes overall has been elite his entire career. But if you look at what he's done in just 6 seasons in the NFL, which 6 seasons starting, that is, since, well, it's 5 seasons starting, 6 seasons overall in the NFL, he's accomplished 1 Super Bowl time champion, 1-time Super Bowl MVP, that was Super Bowl 54, 2-time All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler, and you look at what he did this year in the NFL, 41 touchdowns with 12 picks, was first-team All-Pro, averaging 308.8 yards per game, with 5,250 passing yards, which actually led the NFL. So very impressive season for Patrick Mahomes, and is coming off a very good game against the Cincinnati Bengals, who had a pretty good defense. So I think it'll be a close game, but I'm going to go with the Eagles winning 31-27. Anyways, that does conclude this episode. I will be back live on air here on WZBC next Tuesday night from 7 to 8. That'll be Valentine's Day, actually. So if you guys aren't going out to date, or you're going out to dinner late, or going out to dinner early, maybe you'll tune in. If not, you'll catch it on Spotify if you can. No worries if not. Anyways, thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to this. As always, I appreciate it. Shout out really quick to Tim Loftus, the whole Loftus family. Tim, my parents, my sister Mary Rose had a blast on Friday night going out to dinner with you guys. One of my favorite dinners I've gone on. I've gone out to dinner now a few times in the last few weeks, but that was my favorite one. I had a great time with you guys since, it just came together last minute. It was a blast. So thank you guys for going to dinner. I had a blast there. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you guys, and I can't wait for the Cape this summer. We don't need the warm weather for us to be able to hang out. Tim knows that. We don't got to wait till the Cape, to combine the Maylari and Loftus family and get them back together. But anyways, shout out to the Loftus family, shout out to the Key family, shout out to Auntie Lisa for always listening, shout out to my whole family, all my siblings, thank you guys for listening, my parents as well. Shout out to the O'Malley family. Thank you guys always for listening. Shout out to E, the sports guru, and everyone else that always listens in. I appreciate it. And it's always a blast having you guys listen in. So hopefully have Tim on here maybe next week to talk things sports. Maybe have my boy Matt come on as well. He came on to the Playbook and Joey and Zach last year to talk about the NBA playoffs and brought a ton of insight in. Maybe we'll have him come in next week to talk about the NBA, maybe talk about the Super Bowl and give a recap what happened there. But anyways, thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to this. As always, I appreciate it. I hope you guys have a good one. Stay safe, stay well, and enjoy the Super Bowl this weekend. As I said, this Sunday, 6:35 p.m., and enjoy the rest of your week. And I will see you guys next Tuesday, and I will be uploading an episode probably right before the Super Bowl, maybe do a quick preview of the Super Bowl, maybe the guest before then. But thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it. Hope you guys have a good one. Thank you.